All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Dharma Digs podcast, a podcast in pursuit of purposeful living. As always, I'm your host, Taylor Winchester, and I'm grateful that you've decided to take a little bit of time out of your day once again to stop by and tune into this podcast. So yeah, thank you for being here. Today's episode features a wonderful conversation I have with an old friend of mine, Mr. Travis Shallow, who is an American singer-songwriter, musician, and recording artist based out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Travis and I really met actually in Wilmington as well, and we were both kicking around the music scene and kind of got our start in the music industry as a career, I would say, there in the Wilmington area as far as getting going and writing and playing in bands and whatnot. And Travis still lives down there, travels around the country when things are normal, promoting his music by performing and playing, and he's a great guy. I really enjoyed this conversation. We dive into a few different topics, but one of which we talk about is overcoming the resistance to songwriting or to writing in general. And in addition to that, a little bit about how his sobriety has helped him become more creative and find more of a drive and more of a consistency in his writing. And it was a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed catching up with Travis. It had been far too long. So I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as well. Before we jump over to that, I just want to say thank you as always for being here. If you do find this podcast enjoyable and wouldn't mind leaving a review on Apple or whatever podcast platform you consume this on, and of course, follow, subscribe, all of those things. And I would love for you to engage with me on the social medias as well, have a little conversation, and let me know what you're thinking and what you're enjoying about this show. So, without further ado, let's get right on into this conversation with Travis Shallow. Hope you enjoy it. And here we go. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Dharma Digs episode. And I got my buddy Travis Shallow here. What's up, Travis? Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Man, it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you in person. I've seen, obviously, you're streaming a lot these days, as a lot of musicians and songwriters are, but it's good to put you in front of my face and talk to you one-on-one. It's been too long, you know?
No, it's been a while, man. Anybody that's been tuned into my live stream will probably recognize the backdrop. I was too lazy to set up a laptop somewhere else. I'm like, look, I've already got the camera and the studio mic set up, so I'm not doing this for extra credit. This was the easiest route to
go. Yeah. For those that are listening, you can catch Travis's setup, obviously by tuning into his live streams, but of course on the Dharma Digs YouTube channel. Really, it's my YouTube channel, Taylor Winchester channel, but it's, you'll see the Dharma Digs episode. So Travis and I go pretty far back to my Wilmington days, and you're still kicking around down there, right? How's that market still treating you? Good?
It's still home base. It's pretty good. The past few years we tried to start to branch out more like the 6-hour radius type thing. Did a little bit of traveling with the full band. And then the last couple of years, I kind of dialed it back to just like a duo setup. Me and my guitar player, Bob Russell, and really started, we really consciously tried to find these markets that, like seated listening rooms where we could go in and tell the stories and because that's I'm a narrative storytelling songwriter. So, and Bob's just a phenomenal guitar player. So the last, I would say 2 years, that was the main focus before COVID and the rug got pulled out from all of us.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and just give, if you want to, I mean, I gave a quick introduction, but tell the listeners that maybe aren't familiar with you, give your kind of 60-second elevator speech or whatever you have to kind of set the tone here.
60 seconds. All right.
You can go over.
Yeah, there we go. I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina in 2002. It's been home base ever since. As soon as I got here, I kind of hit the ground running, playing any bar that would have me. And luckily never had to do the whole get an EP thing, an EP CD and drop it off at bars. One guy didn't show up one night. They asked me if I could do it. And every gig I've got since then has all come from that first one. So it's just been, I guess, like a 19-year snowball effect. And I put out some records along the way, had some bands, left some bands, and still here kicking, man. Just put out a single on Cavity Search Records last June, and that's the watered down version, I
That's the
guess.
watered down version. Yeah, I think we first when we met, you were actually, I think you may have been working at Rum Runners, but then somehow you started like hosting the open mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, a long time ago, man. I forgot that I did that. I, yeah, man. I got hired to work the door at this nightclub in Wilmington. There was a dueling piano bar, and I think I was playing gigs then too. Obviously, it wasn't my full time gig, but like, yeah, I was working the door, and then I guess some of the dueling piano guys had figured out that like I could sing, and so they would like call me up a couple times a night to sing a couple songs. Now thinking back, it's just like I just cringe thinking about it, but like it was fun, man. I think I was like 19 or 20,
Yeah.
maybe even younger, man. To be honest with you, I was yeah, maybe it was 19, something like that. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long while. It sounds about right. Right. I think we're both about the same age, but yeah, those days were wild. I remember. I guess it was like an open mic or something. Maybe you started hosting there just because you were working there.
Maybe on one of their off nights, they were like, "Hey, door guy, singer guy, you want to host an open mic?" And was it actually at Rum Runners?
I think so, but it was a short-lived thing, and I just remember the reason that it sticks out in my head is A, they had like penny or 10-cent drafts or something, but then B, somehow one night I ended up, and it was a little bit of a shit show, but I ended up playing a piano up there while somebody else was singing and playing guitar, and I didn't really know piano. Like I had taken a introductory piano course, but it was just those 10-cent drafts will do that to you, I suppose.
That sounds like to me a very G-rated night at Rum Runners, dude. Because look, a dueling piano bar with people that would stumble in there. We got a lot of Marines up from Jacksonville, so it was guaranteed fights. It's just the way it is. And at that place, there were like, and then a lot of bachelorette parties. So like, it was a wild place, man.
It was. It was.
Well, it takes me back, man. But
Yeah, those were like the beginning days for me. Really, even like I'd been playing music in my dorm room and with some people here or there, but that was like right shortly either before or after or right around the same time that I was like starting to get to actually form bands and put stuff together outside of just like kind of kicking around and playing at parties or whatever. So those were the good old days, man.
years ago, man.
Yeah,
That wild.
it's hard to believe. Yeah, it really is. Well, speaking of, while we're still talking about Wilmington, I know there were some other guys that I haven't seen or talked to in a long time, but I know you probably keep up with more so. But are you still, do you ever, I know you used to write a lot with Ron, and I know Ron went through some stuff with his horrible accident, but are you still keeping up with him and Shane Griffiths and any of those guys?
So so let's start with Ron. So yeah, he was in a real bad car accident. I think he just got the year mark since the accident, maybe a month ago. Um, yeah, he moved away from Wilmington. Well, first of all, we were in a band called A Few Good Liars, and we put out a record 10 years ago that we recorded down in Oxford, Mississippi. Um, the record's called Battered Wooden Body. That was a fun one to make. But yeah, me and Ron go way back, man. We did a lot of we lived together, did a lot of writing together. Went down to Mississippi with Ron and Richard Welsh, who on Dobro. He was the third guy, and made a record and put that out. We toured a little bit on that, and then it just kind of fizzled out. We were both young and dumb and doing too much of everything.
Yeah.
And he ended up moving back to Mississippi, and it's kind of been there since. But we've always kept in touch, sending each other little snippets of songs and choruses, and we're lifers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're kind of keeping in touch. Sometimes a few months will go by, but the way social media is, you can kind of ships in the night from afar, but you kind of still feel like you know what's going on. And I remember I was we had done this reunion tour, with a few good liars. Where after, I guess, 9 years at that point since that record had come out, and Ron flew up here, and we did a string of shows here in Wilmington, and that was a good time, man. We like kind of, it was almost like, when you play that much together, no matter how much time goes by, you get back together. You're right where you left off.
Yeah.
Um, we played the Whiskey, and we played, I think, Waterline Brewing, and then we played one more place. Maybe we did the beach somewhere, but it was just a good time, man. And that was kind of like he was visiting, but also we wanted to see, like, should we kind of like revamp this and like maybe do once a year reunions, like not do another record or anything, because we both had solo careers by then. But then shortly after that, a couple months after that, I flew down to Mississippi. We did a like a week long run down there, and we were starting to, like, knock the dust off even more some of these old songs. And then after that run was over, I flown back to Wilmington, and we were keeping in touch with each other on the phone. And I remember I was in Winston Salem at oh, what's it, the Fiddletorium, really really great analog recording studio there. Working on a project with my friend Trip Murphy, and on the drive back from that session, I remember it clear as day. I got the phone call from Ron's girlfriend that basically he was missing, and they were calling me to see if I had heard from him. Long story short, he was in a really bad car accident and got hit by an 18-wheeler. Went into the hospital as a John Doe, and at first they thought he was going to be a quadriplegic, and really he had a few emergency surgeries, and since then has slowly gotten better, but is still paralyzed from the waist down, and is still kind of getting slowly getting some function better back in his hands. So it's been a hell of a road for him, man. And the first thing I did right when he got out of surgery was book me another plane ticket, flew down, and stayed with him for 4 or 5 days in the hospital room. And that was heavy, man. Because he's a blood brother of mine. You know what I mean? Like when you have that many gigs under your belt and that much, life experience in your 20s and your 30s, and then to see, I mean, and let's just say, like, he's one of the most talented singers and songwriters I've ever met.
Yeah.
To see him there in the hospital bed, man, knowing that chances are he won't be able to, 100% fact, he'll never be able to do it the same way he did before. And there was a big question mark on how much function he was really going to get back. So I am happy to report that it's been a year since then. Function's gotten a little bit better. Slowly, has function in his arms, leg movement a little bit, but he's still in a wheelchair. And but you can't keep him down, man. He's still got garage band and still working on some songs. And
Good. Yeah. I mean, I hate that for him because, like you said, I mean, yeah, cheers to Ron. Sending one out to Ron Etheridge. But as you mentioned, man, I mean, he's just down there. He was kind of what a lot of, I think, up and coming musicians and songwriters really aspired to, because he was just so good at the craft of writing a really good song, but also, pretty confident in himself as a musician and a performer. And I remember when all of that went down, he and I didn't keep in like a lot of contact, but like you're saying, social media, you kind of keep up. But I remember seeing your either a photo or video of you reporting from down there, playing a little song in the hotel or in the hospital room. So when you do see or talk to him, man, send him my best wishes and tell him I said hello. But I think about the two of you quite often when I kind of start thinking about you. I just remember y'all, writing a lot of stuff together, and which I think is a good way to kind of, I ask all my guests this, but it's a good way to kind of tie it in, because when I look at Ron and really listen to his music and listen to your music, you mentioned it already, but you guys both are really storytellers, I think, in your own right. But how do you, or is there a way that you kind of define or kind of put any sense of structure around what you feel like songwriting is to you, in a sense of the way that it delivers a purpose within living and kind of being a part of this, greater thing we call life, I suppose?
Sure. I would say that most of the time when I sit down to write a song, it starts off. I mean, it really is a therapy for me. When I start on a new idea, I don't initially imagine me performing this in front of people, and there is no real connection. They're like, this is my job, so I have to do it. You know what I mean? It's such a peculiar job. And lately, like this new record that I'm working on, um, there's so much to write about. I mean, look what's happened in the last year. Um, it seems to be getting a little better, and it seems to be getting a lot worse at the same time. So I've never really had a trouble, with writer's block or anything like that. Um, I would say, as far as the amount of output and that type of thing, it's gotten a lot better over the years. I got a lot better when I quit drinking. That's for sure. I used to think that, well, that's that can we can go on a we can talk for 2 hours just about that. But what I realized was that was a big facade, man. Drinking and drugs were a handicap for me, and they served a purpose when they served a purpose, and there just wasn't a there's a shelf life on that lifestyle. And when it kind of ran its course for me, I wasn't exactly sure what you know songwriting or a musician life was going to be after that. But I'll tell you what, man, it's been over 5 years now, and it's like songwriting output's gone up. I feel like the quality of my work's gone up, and um, but yeah, man, it's always a search, man. It's always a search.
Yeah. I think, this, you mentioned last year and kind of in some ways giving us as creators more content to kind of find a way to be creative. I think in a lot of ways, at least early on, it kind of, for me anyways, it kind of comes in ebbs and flows and comes and goes. And particularly 2020 brought a lot of anxiety for a lot of people, understandably so, but it also brought a lot of kind of inward searching for sense of peace within, and finding peace, especially when you're kind of I don't know if consolidated to your own lonesome to a degree makes sense, but I think also it's similar. I guess I'm kind of comparing it to like when what you're talking about, the difference from when you maybe as a musician, a lot of us have been there where drugs or drinking particularly is like it's in front of you all the time when you're playing at restaurants, playing at gigs, playing at shows. Like everybody wants to buy you a beer, give you another drink. Um, but I think there's a good way out of that, and when you start to your point, like kind of separate the two, you can find some clarity. Particularly for me, I found more clarity within the creative and writing process. Um, and it wasn't for me, it wasn't specifically with like letting go of drinking or anything, but it was just finding time to kind of meditate, really slow down the mental space of all these things coming at you, which when we know a lot of times people that do have drinking problems turn to drinking and drugs or whatever to really kind of numb themselves from all the stuff that's coming at you all the time. So I feel like they kind of go hand in hand there. And I can say at least I still have my glass of wine a night or so, but yeah, the beers don't flow like they used to, but I do feel that the creativity when you're kind of putting your mind in the right headspace is much more it's much more kind of what's the word, it's there, like the texture's there more.
Focused for me. Like I would say, like I mean, look, when you're not hungover the next day, or sometimes the next 2 or 3 days, it's like you just have more time to work. And what I realize is I do my best writing kind of early in the morning. Um, and that's a new thing. It's like, and look, if you're up all night, if you're doing that, after show shenanigans, man, like you're not waking up at 8 a.m. and writing a song. Um, I mean, you might strike gold every now and again and have one just kind of delivered to you at 5, 6 a.m. And you might think it's brilliant, but I tell you what, man, chances are when you go back and revisit it a day or two later, you're like, that's crap, man. That's just unkeepable.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm not gonna, paint it with that broad of a brush, but in my experience, what tends to happen. But yeah, man, I've tried to almost schedule some writing times too. Um, structured a little bit, and it's been fruitful, man. It's like everybody knows you can't just put up an antenna, and summon something. It's not exactly the way it works. You might get lucky every now and again and do that, but I kind of subscribe, or yeah, I think that's the word. Subscribe to the idea that the muse likes to find you working. So if you're in the chair, if you're sitting and you're writing with a pen in your hand, just statistically, percentage wise, you're going to get something more often than if you're, doing something else, hoping for some song to be delivered to you. Not
Yeah,
how it works for me.
yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct, and I think that can translate across anything. I mean, obviously, songwriting is very particular to you, but in general, I think with what we want in life, if you're putting yourself in the situation for those things to become your reality, and you're really trying to kind of um, make the life that you want out of things, then you're much more likely to reach those standards, or reach, find those things. They say put it out in the universe, and the universe will kind of come back to you, as long as you're kind of doing that, I guess, in some sense of a responsible manner to you and humanity or whatever. But
Sure, and just some people call it luck, and the others will say it's preparation mixed with opportunity. There's all those things are true. The more time that you're sitting down, molding and crafting, and I mean, really, it's not just perspective either. It's lately I've been doing a lot more inward stuff, um, a lot more reading in the quiet. I used to love like the over stimulus of a vinyl record on, three screens on. I'm mixing this, responding to stuff. And what I realized is just how much of a distraction that really is. I try to do do things. This really started last year, man, to be honest with you, right before COVID hit. I try to be way more intentional about things. What's the intent behind this? Not just do things and then react to whatever happens, whatever the outcome of that thing is. And what I realized is it matters. Intent really matters, man.
yeah.
And you're never it's never too late to learn, as Todd Snyder would say.
Yeah, and I feel like 2020 it really almost like made that exponentially more clear, in the sense that the way we live, it matters, and with intention is going to make us, I believe, much happier beings by having that intent around as much as we can, anyways, of what we do on a daily basis. And I'm sure that translates across many different artistic forms, but also just ways of living in general. So how much of that are you, since the shift? I mean, I think we all go in these phases of life as we grow more wise with age, but do you feel like any of that is impacting your writing in the sense of the topic? Or maybe, if you don't mind opening up that can of worms a little bit, but like, what's your process in that? And are you really picking things that are happening in the day to day, and crafting songs around that? Or is it the emotion and feeling of what's happening these days, and maybe what you're reading by yourself in those moments of kind of solitude, that then evoke emotion out of whatever, and then that kind of comes out? Like, how intentional are you with all of that?
I think it's a total combination of all those things. I think whatever I'm reading that day, whatever's going on in the world, and however I feel about either the thing I'm reading, or however I feel about what's going on, there's a golden thread there. And sometimes I'll start with an idea, and I've tried to be better about not questioning why I feel this, why that idea keeps coming up in front of me, and either first of all writing it down, or notes in my phone. I tend to write in couplets. Um, so if I have an idea, a lot of times I have two lines. Sometimes they rhyme, sometimes they don't, but it's got to be sometime. The idea has to grab me enough to make me want to write it down, or save it in notes. And another thing that's been really amped up the fruitfulness of my songwriting is like, don't wait. If that idea was strong enough, or hit me strong enough to write it down, like, if you can start the song then. There's a reason why it hit you then, and it's almost impossible for me now to revisit this, or the notes or the thing later, with the same intent or the same uh not pressure, but you
Oh,
know, you know what I'm saying.
yeah.
It's like I gotta do it now, and I stop pushing things back, and so now if an idea hits me and I love it, and like, you know, the thing, the goosebumps, they're like, that's fucking good, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'll either, luckily I work from home, you know what I mean? This is all I do all day. So I'm reading all kinds of stuff, praying, man. Come on, something hit me.
Yeah.
But the benefit from having the notes or the things written down is when you get stuck on a third verse. Any songwriters listen to this, I'm sure you already have this. But if you're stuck on a bridge, you're stuck on that third verse, you can always go back to that, read these things you've written, and see what's there. I mean, there's all kinds of writing exercises that I've read about that I haven't really explored yet. Like just opening up any two random books, start reading, and then see what, because your ego, like your subconscious, wants to come out and play. It
Yeah.
just wants to. And I haven't really dove too deep into that because luckily, things have kind of kept showing up. But yeah,
Yeah.
man, there's no right.
Yeah, and I follow all of you. I follow you on all of that. I think we're similar in that ways. A lot of times it'll come with like one or two lines, and same thing. I'll put it in my phone, or if I'm around the house and have the guitar. Usually it's because I'm, to your point, like I'm kind of setting aside time, or I feel this energy that says, hey, go pick up your guitar and walk around the backyard for a minute. And like I've had more songs come and the creativity come more easily in those scenarios, to where I am walking away from all of these distractions that are in this room, and really it's just me and the guitar, and kind of letting it flow. But I guess that over time I've come back to stuff, but I'm like you, man. A lot of times it's like the intensity of whatever that first moment of that it pops up in your mind, it just starts to wane as you like let it go and then try to come back to it. So it's hard to really do it with the same, to your point, the same intent, but that emotion that's behind you isn't quite as intense as it was when it first came to you. And I think I don't know how to grapple with that. I mean, that's tough.
It's first of all, it's the self-awareness of knowing that happens. And it's taken me so long to even just be self-aware enough to, I mean, like, how many songs that I've could have written. I mean, just really, like, things that just slapped me in the face, an idea that just really was begging for me. And I had guitars around. I could, you know what I mean? And this is what I used to do. Like, embarrassingly, this is honest. Like, I would be like, man, I can't wait to write that song.
Yeah.
I can't wait to write that when the time, maybe tomorrow, maybe you know what I mean? Like, it's like I was just in the middle of the thing. It's like I'm restringing this thing. Like, no, like now it's kind of like, look, if it's good enough to 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 hit me and to stick around, you know what I mean? It's saying, if you're gonna be a songwriter, man, you gotta write the songs.
Yeah, and follow the signs. I think that's that can, again, something that, as we all hone our crafts, but really in general with life, sometimes I think the spirit speaks to you as a songwriter. It speaks to you in a very specific way. It evokes this desire, this creativity for you to put it down and kind of put music to it. But even for others, I think we walk through life sometimes and the signs are all around us, but we have a tendency to just kind of walk right past them and be like, oh, I'm going to come back to that tomorrow. But then tomorrow it's not there because you got everything else going on.
Self-awareness is one that I just still working on, man.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
right? I mean, look, and like, and what we were just talking about, those type of songs, it's those are when, then there's times where I'll sit down to write because I just need to, man. It's like I don't know what this is going to be about. It's more of like a brain dump and like just sift through it and see if there's something there, or what, why am I feeling this way? Um and sometimes it bears fruit, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, it's a strange beast, man.
So strange. And you mentioned the self-awareness component of it, and that's something even kind of separate from the musical or creativity side for me that 2020 brought even more. And I think I've been working towards more awareness in general, and kind of being in the here and the now and the moment and stuff over the last many years, but really 2020 kind of made you kind of stop and think about that a little bit more. But I think it also it's a great segue into kind of my segment too, and some of the shows quotes that you shared with me, and we kind of exchanged some stuff back and forth. And you mentioned this Leonard Cohen quote, that being a songwriter is like being a nun, you're married to a mystery. And I think that's so true. And I mean, it's a lot of what you've kind of just talked about. And you never know what you're going to get when you write down, or when you sit to write. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it might not be so great. But why did you pick that quote? What kind of stuck out? And real quick before you answer that, let me read it one more time for you listeners out there. It's a Leonard Cohen quote, and Travis shared this with me prior to the show. But it's being a songwriter is like being a nun. You're married to a mystery.
I mean,
not much to say. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
and there's layers to it too. You know what I mean? There's a spiritual and a faith aspect layer to it, that there seems to be, I mean, I really think faith is the right word, that you don't really know when the songs are going to come. There's a natural inherent resistance to it also, to both, I think, to faith, or your spirituality, and to songwriting. That is a whole nother fascinating podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all have this resistance. Like, I don't know if you listen to Joe Pug's podcast called The Working Songwriter. It's I it's a good, when I'm mowing the grass, I'll put that in the earbuds. And part of his intro just says, it's like, welcome to another episode. We got who, and it's like, if you're here, you're here because you're looking for what every songwriter is looking for, an ironclad excuse to not be writing at the moment. It's something like that. Not the quote, but
that's pretty close. Yeah, I think that's pretty close. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So the sentiments there. It's like, look, if there's a inherent resistance to being given something right here that is like begging you to look at it, and there's just, you're like, ugh. Because most of the time it comes at like, a not favorable time. You're doing other stuff, and it's like, but to me, to kind of like condense what this job is, I think it's that. It's the self-awareness to acknowledge when that thing is there, and then getting over that initial hump of the resistance that I feel every single time to pick up a pen or the guitar and to do it. Because this is the thing. It's like jumping out of an airplane. It's like you don't want to, as soon as you do it, like the greatest excitement is right on the other side of that resistance.
Yeah.
And so that I don't know, man. That Leonard Cohen quote just nails it to me.
Yeah, it kind of sums it all up. Yeah, and I think, it's something that it can, if you're not a songwriter and you're out there listening, like, I think it's the same. It's this fear, this sense of fear. For me as a songwriter, I can relate to that in the sense that I'm resistant, because I think sometimes in some ways is because the fear of that I'm going to sit down and spend this time, but it's not going to be the great song that I want it to be. But that's part of being a songwriter. You have to jump in and go with it. That's a good one.
You can write 50 that aren't career defining, or you don't even have career in your mind. Yeah. You're just that's one thing I've been real conscious about too. Like to accent kind of your point is, you know, just because whatever idea is in front of you or whatever that the goosebump feeling, the where's my guitar, or where's my pen, where's the phone that I can just write down this idea. It doesn't need to be, more than it is. Maybe it is just two lines. It's just a road post to follow.
Yeah.
And it might not be the next song you write. It might not be the one after that. But the one that, who knows what the one even means. We can go into that too. But like you'd never get there if you didn't write the two that were shit.
Yep.
And it's just like, again, the Leonard Cohen quote. It's just, I keep coming back to it. And I don't remember where I heard that quote. I heard it years and years ago, but it really just resonated with me. And yeah, still holds water.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I mean, what you were just touching on is, I think it's again, it's going to transition us into the next quote, which I actually pulled and shared with you, which is actually a quote of one of your own tunes. I think it's from the song you released last year. And everybody, real quick, the quote is, "If it ain't meant to last, gotta let it pass." One more time for you. If it ain't meant to last, you gotta let it pass. And I think that's so true. It's kind of that point of being self-aware in the sense that, it's not always, the moment you're in isn't always, I guess I kind of look at that as it can have so many different meanings. And the way I kind of thought about it was that sometimes you have to know it can, if you're talking about a relationship, obviously that's where I think a lot of people sometimes when they think about songs, they kind of think, oh, well, is he writing about this or what's he writing about, but I think it can mean so much more than that. And really it's something to live by in the sense of it's really only just the here and now. And sometimes it's not meant to last. It's supposed to be that very unique and special moment. That is the goosebump moments, whether it's the writing of the song and putting in the work, or it is that first glance of the lovely lady you saw at the bar that's going to eventually be your wife. You just don't know, but it's finding the preciousness in the current moment, I feel like. And sometimes it's safe to know that it's not all about that, longevity of that moment. So when you were writing that, without divulging too much information, where did that kind of, where did the inspiration behind that lyric or that song come from?
I remember just the "let it pass" line just kind of going over and over in my head. It kind of originally came from, I was watching a good friend of mine that was going through a divorce, and she was having a hard time, man. And I kind of had this, a lot of times when I write in these couplets or I have a line that I have like a mental image of the person or the story or like almost like a cinematic view of it. And I kind of like could see her doing like a mundane task, like getting her oil changed or something, and sitting in the waiting room, like looking at her phone, but like maybe having people around and nobody knows what she's actually going through and the weight of what she's going through. And while also like deep down inside, she knew that like the situation she was in wasn't meant to be. You know what I mean? And I'd done some other interview stuff. I talked about it a little bit too, where it was like, or I've said this before. It's like you're holding on to an electric fence, waiting for it to stop hurting you, when all you really got to do is let go.
Yeah.
It was simple, but we all make these things so much more difficult and fight it with a different kind of resistance. So that was kind of where the initial first verse came from. And then, if it ain't meant to last, you gotta let it pass. I mean, how many things? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the third verse right into like, my own sobriety and that type of thing. But that was a quick write, man. That was actually a throwaway. I'd had that down. I started doing a lot more writing and open tunings, and excuse me, and which just really opened up the door to like my output and just approaching simple 3-chord, 4-chord songs, but having them take on kind of like a grand piano type feeling, like open tunings. Just like, I mean, any songwriters that are tuning in that are feeling stuck, man, just open D, open E, the song's done. Like, like that's kind of how it was for me. Um, and so I had this song done, and to circle back around to Ron, we were sending some songs back and forth to each other, and he had sent me one that was just great. And I was like, oh my god, I got to step it up. You know what I mean? You need those people as a song, as
Yeah.
like fellow songwriter. He was like, what do you have? And I just written that song the day before. I was like, yeah, I ain't really, Well, I wrote this one yesterday. I really thought it was a throwaway. I thought maybe the chorus was usable, and he sent me a long message back that was just like, look, man, you got to do something with this one. Like, this is there, like this is there's something here, and that really just kind of gave me the juice to like kind of revisit it. And I might have tweaked one or two things, but the bones of it were there. And and then shortly after, I had connected with Cavity Search Records out of Portland, and they asked me if I had any interest in releasing a single, um, or if I had any new material. And I said, well, I would have never sent this song to them if it wasn't for me sending it to Ron and Ron telling me what he thought. I thought it was a throwaway. So I sent that to them. I actually had, in the days between Ron and me emailing back and forth with Cavity Search, I had done a demo here. I've got a little home studio here where I up till this last song I was just doing demos, but I've been really focusing on the production side of things and just kind of getting better at Pro Tools, and got it to a place where I had done a demo of Let It Pass. I sent it to Cavity Search, and he initially wanted a few songs. I was like, well, I got this one. I'll send you some more stuff. I sent him the one. He just emailed me back. He was like, don't send me anything else. He was like, just record this one. This is perfect. So I said, well, okay. Um, it'll be a one-off. Cool. So then I just took it on to, all right, well, I'm going to record this myself here. And it was the first release that I had, official release from my home studio that I just did myself front to back. And I mean, I probably wrote it in this chair, recorded it in this chair, mixed and mastered it in this chair. Bob Russell came over and did a beautiful kind of ethereal atmosphere part for it. It was a simple production, but yeah, sent it to Cavity Search, and that was kind of how that song came about, man.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, especially to now hear that, because I think all your stuff sounds really top notch, and it's to go back to what you mentioned, I can, when I listen to your music, I even if I didn't know you, I would expect it to be like a storyteller, because the music, the lyrics that come through just paint this sense of, for me, it evokes this imagery of what's going on in the story, and that's sometimes is probably made up in my head versus maybe what you intended. But yeah, I mean, that's cool to hear that you produced that at home too. So very
Yeah.
cool, very good stuff.
Yeah, I try not to over explain songs, to let people, but that one in particular, it's kind of what's on the paper.
Yeah.
And even if I start off a song that's not first person bass or not a me song, by the end of it, I'm all up in it. You know, you write about what you know.
Yeah. Well, I think we could spend a whole nother episode, and I'm sure a lot of uh, my friends and listeners and people that are musicians and songwriters would love to hear some of your story on the sense of more of the business aspect, how you've gotten some of the amazing kind of brand partnerships that you've done. But I won't dive into all that stuff today. But if you are listening and curious, obviously go follow Travis and see all the stuff he's got going on, because you really stay active in that regards too. And I think for artistic or folks that are looking to maybe turn their art into any type of business, I think you're a good model to follow, in the sense of you have done more than just sit around and write music and kind of put the music out. You're putting the work in on all facets of it, of the business side too. So kudos on all that, man. Nice work.
Nice work. I really appreciate that, man. A lot of those, you know, it might look like it's strategic, there's always a face value, and then there's how these things really happen. But back to the intent part, like there has been a lot of intent about, not so much about, uh, endorsements and that type of thing. Breedlove Guitars has been great to me since day one, um, especially once COVID hit. But I kind of started seeing the painting on the wall, um, not pre-COVID. Nobody saw that coming,
Right.
but kind of you got to have multiple irons in the fire, especially these days. Look, we're not getting paid for our music, man. It's just the way it is right now. You know what I mean? Um, Streaming royalties are a joke, and but physical copies and live shows, I mean, that's your revenue stream. And I would say maybe 5, 6 years ago, I really got my website, e-commerce store, started building out the merch. And what I realized is that, look, you got to have supplemental income with your merch. And plus, it's fun. To me, it's fun to do, man. You can have an idea. Now I'm kind of to a place where, like, if I want to do a specific run of something, or there's something that if I have the idea, I can, half-ass draw it, send it to somebody that does that. It's a friend of mine. It's all local, all here. I can send it to them. They can actually draw it up. I've got a guy that can do my t-shirts locally here, and you kind of need that tribe. And it's almost there's two road posts here. Do as much as you can on your own, but you can't do it all on your own.
Right.
There's this, ebb and flow weaving river that you got to navigate. And for a long time there, I really tried to do it all on my own. And what that ended up doing was the output went down, the quality of everything goes down. And look, wear all the hats, but every now and again, throw a hat to a friend, man. Like, send them some work, pay them, try to keep it local if you can. And before you know it, you got a tribe, man. Like, you really can, and it's not far away. And everybody kind of does it their own way. And I've just kind of, once I started seeing, okay, like this person can do this really well, this person can do this really well. Like, I mean, nobody can really afford to keep people on retainer, but you have those contacts. It's like, look, if I got an idea, you got 2 hours to throw at this design, you get it back, and then I can throw it to, John Spatrino at Daztec Promotions to print shirts, and the turnaround's quick, and
Yeah.
they're all, I fulfill every order here, and like, it's a system. But I'm super glad I kind of had that up and running, because once COVID hit, now it's like, look, like, your ship doesn't sail on yesterday's wind. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta, and when live shows got pulled out from us, like, all those things came into play. Now it's like, okay, you can run merch specials, or like I started the live stream. I did live stream shirts, and like, it's a labor of love, but it's
what you got
part
to
of the
do.
job.
Yeah.
What you got to do. Yeah. If you're an indie guy and you want to keep it DIY, it's possible. It's just crazy though. It's like every day, it's just, you're putting out fires a little bit,
Yeah.
But I like packaging up all my own merch, man. I'll do handwritten letters in there and stuff. Like, I want people to know that, like, if you got time for me, man, if you're supporting what I'm doing, I've got time for you. And I mean it, because it's the only way to stay sustainable. And this is besides songwriting. Like, yeah, you got to write the songs, you got to do the thing, but there's like you said, there's the business side to it, where it's like, if people want to support you, not only with their words and like sharing posts, but with their money, like, that's heavy to me. That's a big deal. And so I got time for them, man. We try to keep it that way.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think a lot of creative entrepreneurs struggle with this in general. I do myself. My wife does with photography, but we all struggle with just asking people to give us money, for something that you mentioned. It to us is a labor of love. So we do it because we love doing it. And and at times it's hard to feel like feel like you shouldn't charge for it. You know what I mean? But the other side, the flip side of that coin is, it is, in order for us to do these types of creative aspirations and do it full time and put more into it and keep creating, you have to have some financial support there. So yeah, you got to think about the left brain, right brain, creative versus business mind sometimes, and pick your aisle when you have to.
It's a tricky thing to navigate, man. It's like, because look, for a long time, my hobby and my job were the same thing. Like there was no like, all right, I'm clocking out now, and now I'm gonna like, the day just turns into night. If you're writing during the day and you're gigging at night, or you're traveling to a gig out of town, whatever it is, um, it's just and the thing is, we'd be doing it whether we charge for it or not.
Yep.
And there's the more interesting argument, really, to me, is like, I'm still not sure they should ever blend. Like art and commerce, it's oil and water. I mean, we're forcing. There's a sense of forcing them together just to keep the light bill paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it never really truly meant to be that way. One of them has to suffer, but that's you gotta eat, you gotta live somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're saying in some ways is like the definition of this show is like trying to discover our dharmas and reach our dharma, and that term really, it doesn't hold a direct core or like definition in the English language, but everybody in my research, everybody talks about it's this purpose, and it's what you it's the joy that you find and the things that you do that bring you joy, and you do it without necessarily worrying about the money or the funds that are going to come from it. And I think most artists can relate to that. It's like, we're going to do this to some degree without the money coming in, but if we have some money to keep our bills paid, then that means we can do it that much more with a little less anxiety, or at least with more time and effort and intention that you're talking about. So it all kind of comes full circle. We need in this time, with access to everything content wise, it's, even as an artist, sometimes I have guilt that seeps in because I'm consuming people's music off of Spotify or whatever platform it is. But so it's a tough thing to kind of grapple with as an artist and entrepreneur in a lot of ways. But we just got to keep doing it too, like you're saying, and find ways. And that's where I think, you've obviously done a great job of finding that community, getting the supporters that really dig your music, but also buy into the mission behind all of it. And that's just as important.
Yeah. It's like when COVID hit, man, I maybe should have been more worried than I was. Not to say that, look, I wasn't, when few weeks of shows started being canceled, and then it was just a clean swipe. Everything for the rest of the year was gone. But people really started showing up right away. How can what do you got going on? Also, I pivoted pretty quickly to get a live stream up and going, because I saw that, like, look, like, this is and not so much for the financial side of things right away. It was more for my own mental health, man.
Yeah.
It's like most artists, man, they kind of start and end things for themselves because they want to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, look, if you got to turn a song in, or you got to turn a record in, like, okay, like, part of it's for somebody, but like, they pretty much, we kind of do what we want to do. We're getting a lot, you know what I'm saying? We're getting a lot of trouble and a lot of pickles for doing that. But like, at the end of the day, that's part of why we do this. It's like, I don't know if I exactly fit the mold of going in somewhere and kind of having somebody, I don't know, TPS reports and that type of thing. It's just like, I have plenty of beautiful, smart friends that do that dance, and then they get done, and then they go scuba diving, which is their actual passion.
Yep.
It's like, you work a mundane job or whatever that you can get through it, and you're not driving yourself crazy to make the money to go do the thing that actually sets you on fire. Or you can try to combine the oil and water and make the thing yourself, and it have to wear those, the business hat too, and make it all work. And it's like, it seems like we're both in that second category,
Yeah.
and kind of throwing haymakers underwater, trying to make it work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But this part I was going to say too, man, it's like what I've done a lot of thinking about since COVID hit. And right when I was thinking about getting the live stream up and going, it was, I was like basically reading in one room and then going to another room and reading and then going to another, you know what I mean? It was just me wandering room to room. And I knew, I was like, if I can't do this for months, like look, for my sobriety wise, like all the things they tell you how to do, don't isolate, but down the checklist, and you're on TV with a governor telling you to do all those things. It's like, look, you can't tell guys in recovery, cats in recovery, this stuff. It's like, this is not good. So right away, it's like, okay, I set up a live stream. The technical side of it took a week, literally a week straight. Like I was on YouTube University figuring this stuff out, man. Like, I know how to run Pro Tools and microphones, but having to get this to talk to a camera and the encoding and the bit rates and, all this stuff. And back then, the only YouTube instructional videos were for gamers.
Yep.
And Twitch channels. And like, there was no musicians that had done this yet that could then do it specifically for music, for live streaming music. So I would like find a little bit of information on this guy, get one from another. Finally got it all kind of rigged up. The first few were a little rough. There was tech glitches and stuff. But I was big on like, okay, people need consistency right now because I need consistency. So if I need it, chances are everybody else would appreciate this too. And so I did every Wednesday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I started in March and we haven't missed one yet. And I think circle back around to your point about, the business side of things and a grassroots thing and having people support you. It's like, I'm, you know what, this quote sums it up even better. I think it's a Chris Rock quote. It's like, look, if you ran out of gas, you're on the side of the road and you're just sitting there with your thumb out, nobody will stop. But as soon as you start pushing your car yourself, multiple people will stop to help you. It's like people like to see you helping yourself, you doing it yourself. And it's so much easier for people to get behind somebody when they see how hungry they are and they're not looking for a handout, man. It's like they're trying to be the pace car and they're trying to do it their own way. And I think very subconsciously, that's what kind of happened with the live stream. And then new listeners, and it was a very organic thing. And, and then Breed Love Guitars asked me to do one for them. And I started doing this Songs and Ramblings. I just had to call it something because that's ended up what it was. Yeah. I was basically doing these live takeovers for a couple different companies and while still doing my live stream. And I think looking back now, this wasn't really on the forefront of my brain, but I think that's kind of what I was doing. Was just trying to connect the dots for myself and like for my own mental health and like my own purpose. And like every time I sit down in this chair and I play songs for people for an hour and a half or 2 hours, when I get done, I feel like I'm just better.
Yeah.
And we've kind of taken the money and the bar sales and all that stuff out of the equation. And I'm really starting to like it, man. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. Like whenever you get on the other side of this thing where shows are back, like who knows, man? Like I don't really see an end date for my live stream because it's like it's like a direct video newsletter because I do this monthly newsletter too. And now I can just tell the people twice a week like, what's going on. And so I don't know, man. What started off as a really weird platform out of necessity kind of turned into like, this is what I'm doing full time right now. I throw a couple of virtual tip jar links up there and that's the gig, man. Yeah. I don't know. That was kind of all over the place, but that kind of sums up kind of how we got to right here.
Yeah, no, you've done great too. I mean, that's something I started early on. I did some live streams and was doing it weekly for a little while, but it's also, I mean, it's a lot of work and people don't realize it, trying to, mix your set list up, play new music and not do, not repeat the same stuff every week or every other week and really get creative. But to your point, a lot of it is just staying consistent. And I think, you hit the nail on the head. For you, it's like, it's what kept you busy and kept you focused on putting in the work, and then people reward you for that and tune in and you get new listeners and all that. And I kind of I slowed down on the live streams and haven't done one honestly in a while now, but part of that reasoning is because it finally allowed me time to like focus in on these types of projects and a podcast, and really starting to reach out and putting efforts into some things that I had wanted to do for some time, but had just never gotten around to doing them. Um, but I know we're getting tight on time. I'm getting tight on time, and I hate to have to jump. But let's. I do want to move into segment 3 and kind of get, as I ask everybody. You mentioned a little bit about your, supporting and working with your local team or your tribe for your business. But are there any organizations? And actually, speaking of, before we go into that, you mentioned your team and tribe. Tom Shaw was a guest on a few weeks back, and he was shouting out like he did a shirt with you as a collaboration down there in Wilmington, which is really cool.
Live stream shirts.
Yeah, the live stream one, that was a super cool design, and like when worlds collide, it's always cool. But yeah, what about as I mentioned, I ask everybody, but like, what organizations do you want to shout out? Is there anybody that you just like, mission based or not, that you feel like needs a little love today?
Totally. So it's called Painted Buffalo Traveling Studio.
Okay.
And let me unpack this a little bit. So her name's Jessica Rambo. She's my cousin. And basically what she does, definitely check her out on Instagram. I think it's just at traveling, or it's at Painted Buffalo Traveling Studio. And she spent a week with me in the beginning of March, like right when kind of COVID was going through. And what she lives on a schoolie. And for anybody that don't know what this is, she took a school bus, gutted it herself, and turned it into her house. And it's her and her son, and sometimes her daughter, and 2 dogs and a cat named Sushi. And they basically are just traveling around the country. But it's a nonprofit, and what it does is she accepts donations, and she's got some merch and stuff on her website where she gets together these art supplies for veterans. So it's veterans helping veterans. She's a veteran herself, and so she basically just travels the country in her converted school bus, and drops off these art supplies that she keeps in these badass like ammo containers. The big whatever machine gun ammo,
Yeah.
and just packs them full of different art supplies, and just drops them off to other veteran artists. So that's her bag, and she's been doing that for a few years now. She's real active on Instagram, and man, I couldn't be more proud of her, man. Yeah, and the week that she spent in my driveway was fantastic, dude. Like, she stayed here for a week. I just liked it. I think I shot a video inside her bus. Yeah, definitely check her out, man. She's good people doing good things, and she love all the support that any of the listeners out there could throw her way. So check her out.
That's awesome. I can have special appreciation for that, as my wife and I have a little camper van that we scoot around in when we can. We're not living in it full time, unfortunately. And fortunately sometimes it's nice to have a little home base too, but that's cool. I'll include all of her links. I'll look them up and include them in the show notes. And just tell everybody real quick, listeners, where's the best way to find you? Is it just all at Travis Shallow or TravisShallow.com?
Yeah, just TravisShallow.com, or a quick Google search. Most of the stuff that comes up is true. And but yeah, at Travis Shallow on Instagram, at Travis Shallow Music on Facebook, and on all the streaming services. I'm building the YouTube channel as we all are right now, and yeah, all the irons in the fire, man. So yeah, my live stream I do through my Facebook band page every Wednesday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And then after the live stream's over, I archive all the episodes on my YouTube channel. So all 87 episodes are there. I also do song highlight videos from that. So TravisShallow.com is the hub, but yeah, quick Google search.
That's cool. And any new records in the you mentioned some irons in the fire, but any new music coming out this year or anything in the plans?
Right now, I'm mixing a live duo record that me and Bob had from last year. Putting finishing touches on it. We haven't announced a release date for that quite yet, but I'm digging what I have so far. I'm actually doing that one right here. I was working on that this morning. Just got a few more songs to mix, and then I've got a couple singles that I'm putting finishing touches on too. But yeah, man, the writing output during COVID has been surprisingly good, man. It's interesting times. It's there's no I don't know, man. I'm still kind of going back to some of these songs that I'm working on, and they're starting to reveal some other sides to me of kind of what they're about, man. And it's they might just be a road post to be part of a bigger full album. I don't know, man.
Very
No
cool.
matter what, the live duo record is going to be announced soon, and then there'll definitely be more music out this year. No doubt.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me, man. It's been great to catch up and chat with you a little bit. We definitely need to do it again when I have a little bit more time and we can talk about. I'd love to get you back on and talk about the business sometimes, because I think we didn't even dive fully into that, but I think there's a lot there to unpack as well.
Well, man, we could have a whole another 2 hours just about that. But it can get boring too, man. It's the necessity stuff. Like, look, I'll talk about it all day long because
Yeah.
it's half the time I spent. Actually, you know what? Probably more of the time that I have is spent on that, and I'm trying to right now rebalance that ratio so I'm more on the fulfilling creative side of it rather than
Working.
whatever
the other stuff is. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, keep doing you, man. I love it. And I know obviously your listeners do, and hopefully some of my folks check you out as well. But yeah, thanks for being here. We'll do it again. And listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to go give Travis a follow and check out his upcoming live streams on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So otherwise, we'll see you next week for another episode of Dharma Digs podcast. And thanks for being here. Namaste.